Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Lichtman Live post show. The best show on YouTube, let's be honest. The best show on YouTube. Thank you all for joining me. We got Sean in the house. We got Susie K in the house. Who else we got in the house? OK3000. Lumi Akin is in the house. Arif Silverman. Will's here. So many great people here. What did everybody think about that show? Had my mom on for the first time. Some great climate change knowledge. I thought that was, obviously I knew it already, but I think it's super good information to have when you're going to the polls, Let's see. People seem to enjoy the show, so that's great. All right, so today on the Lichtman Live post show, I wanted to do a full analysis of this Kamala Harris Fox News interview. Now, I think I seem to be the outlier of everybody. I see people online saying Kamala Harris was terrible. Obviously, a lot of right-wingers saying that. I see a lot of people on the left and a lot of Democrats saying that Harris destroyed. I don't think either are true. I've already watched this once. I'm going to watch it again with you all. I think that she wasn't very good, to be honest, and Baier also wasn't very good either. So I wanted to watch it with you all and give a full analysis. Because my dad didn't watch. So before today's show, I asked my dad if he wanted to talk about this, but he said he didn't watch it. So I thought, perfect, I'll do a full analysis on my show. How many people have already watched this? Let me see. Let me do a quick poll. Have you watched this Fox Kamala interview? Heather says disagree. Kamala was great. Well, we'll get into the full analysis of it. Susie K says my opinion is the same. Some people didn't watch it. All right. The better question is, do we want to watch it? Well, I did put it in the title. All right. A good amount of people haven't watched it, though. So I'm going to do it. All right. Let's get into this.
Madam Vice President, thank you for the time.
Thank you. It's good to be with you, Bret.
Voters tell pollsters all over the country and here in Pennsylvania that immigration is one of the key issues that they're looking at this election, and specifically the influx of illegal immigrants from more than 150 countries. How many illegal immigrants would you estimate your administration has released into the country over the last 3.5 years?
Well, I'm glad you raised the issue of immigration because I agree with you. It is a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have. And you know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, but
right
do you,
now,
just a number, do you think it's 1 million, 3 million?
Bret, let's just get to the point. Okay, the point is that we have a broken immigration system that needs to be repaired.
So your Homeland Security Secretary said that 85% of apprehensions.
I'm not finished. We have an
immigration.
Look, I like that she's going in there and telling him he's not finished, right? Like I like her standing up for himself. He's obviously interrupting her. Was she answering the question? No, but maybe she would have gotten to the question, right?
6 million people have been released into the country. And let me just finish. I'll get to the question, I promise you.
I was beginning to answer.
And when you came into office, your administration immediately reversed a number of Trump border policies.
And he didn't even, this is where I'm saying he didn't even let her get to the answer. Was she going to get to the answer? I don't know, but he just interrupted her.
Most significantly, the policy that required illegal immigrants to be detained through deportation, either in the U.S. or in Mexico. And you switched that policy. They were released from custody awaiting trial. So instead, included in those were a large number of single men, adult men, who went on to commit heinous crimes.
So this is one thing that I wanted to look up. So he says that a large number of these people on the catch and release program were single men. Now, I don't know what that means. That could mean anything, right? He doesn't give any sort of statistic about that. He just says right here, a large number of single men. I don't even know how you could confirm that or not confirm that. Again, an issue with a Fox-leaning reporter. What would you even look up for that? Like, it's hard to say. We'll get back to that, but I just feel like that's a misleading way to phrase a question. A large number of single men.
So, looking back, do you regret who included in those were a large number of single men, adult men, who went on to commit heinous crimes? So, looking back, do you...
So he's about to cite 3 cases, right? Which none should have happened, obviously. But he's framing this in a weird way. He's saying all these single men were released who went on to create heinous crimes, right? And then cites 3 cases. I have an issue with that kind of journalism.
Regret.
I don't have an issue with him bringing it up and the fact that there were heinous crimes committed by illegal immigrants against these women. But the way he frames it as a large number of single men were released who went on to commit heinous crimes makes you think that there are, I don't know, hundreds, thousands, you don't know. Again, the framing of the question is misleading.
The decision to terminate Remain in Mexico at the beginning of your administration.
At the beginning of our administration, within practically hours of taking the oath, the first bill that we offered Congress, before we worked on infrastructure, before the Inflation Reduction Act, before the CHIPS and Science Act, before the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021.
Exactly.
It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the...
Finish?
Yes, ma'am.
May I finish responding?
Like, why is he interrupting her here? There was no reason for... She's talking about the same bill that he's talking about, and he interrupts her to just say the name of the bill. Now, maybe he was going to go on to say more because he goes on to say that it didn't pass. But still, he just interrupted her to just say the same things that she was saying.
Please?
But
you have to let me finish.
You
please.
had the White House and the House and the Senate, and they didn't
Right here, he goes on to expand upon, but again, he's not letting her finish.
bring up that bill.
Responding to the point you're raising,
Okay.
and I'd like to finish.
Yes, ma'am.
We recognized from day one that, to the point of this being your first question,
For yes, man. Do you guys see that? It said for yes, ma'am. It said
recognized
Yemen.
from day one that, to the point of this being
Bret,
your
Yemen.
first question, it is a priority for us as a nation and for the American people. And our focus has been on fixing a problem. And from day one, then, we have done a number of things, including to address our asylum system and put more resources, getting more judges, what we needed to do to tighten up penalties and increase penalties for illegal crossings, what we needed to do to deal with points of entry between border entry points. That's the work we did, and we worked on supporting what was a bipartisan effort, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, to actually strengthen the border. That border bill would have put 1,500 more border agents at the border, which is why I believe the Border Patrol agents supported the bill. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States, which is a scourge affecting people of every background, every geographic location in our country, killing people. It would have allowed us to put more resources into prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, which I have done as the Attorney General.
Okay, now here I'm fine with him interjecting, because now she's just kind of going on this rambling of we've all heard before, like she was the Attorney General of California, which I totally agree is a good part of her history, but is not super relevant in 2024 today in this interview.
A former Attorney General of a border state.
Madam Vice President, a couple of things.
Prosecuted trafficking of drugs, guns, and human beings. And Donald Trump, but let me just finish.
6 Democrats voted against that bill.
Learned about that bill and told them to kill it because he preferred to run on a problem.
I mean, she's totally correct. She's totally spitting facts here. There's nothing wrong with, I mean, everything she's saying is true, right?
Instead of fixing a problem. And in this election, this is rightly a discussion that the American people want to have. And what they want.
Joseph Schultz says that this bill didn't pass, this first bill that they're talking about, not the bipartisan one. It didn't pass because only 12% went to the border, 12 went to Israel, 61% went to Ukraine. It was all garbage, waste of taxpayer dollars. Okay. I don't know that that's what Joseph is saying. I can't confirm that.
Are solutions, and they want a president of the United States who's not playing political games with the issue,
I hear you,
but actually is focused on fixing it.
6 Democrats voted against that bill. It would have allowed 1.8 million illegal immigrants into the country a year. A lot of conservatives had a problem with it. These are the 6 Democrats. But more importantly, back to the original premise, Jocelyn Nungari, Rachel Morin, Laken Riley, they are young women who were brutally assaulted and killed by some of the men who were released at the beginning of the administration, well before a negotiated bipartisan bill. Former President Clinton actually referred to Laken Riley Sunday, campaigning for you in Georgia, saying if those men had been properly vetted, Laken Riley probably would not have been killed. So if it wouldn't have happened, this is well before any negotiation. This is well before Donald Trump got involved in the politics. This is a specific policy decision by your administration to release these men into the country. So what I'm saying to you, do you owe
Bret,
those families an apology?
Let me just say, first of all, those are tragic cases. There's no question about that. There is no question about that. And I can't imagine the pain that the families of those victims have experienced for a loss that should not have occurred. So that is true. It is also true that if a border security had actually been passed 9 months ago, it would be 9 months that we would have had more border agents at the border, more support for the folks who are working around the clock trying to hold it all together.
Madam Vice President.
To ensure that no future harm would occur. And this election in 20 days will determine whether we have a president of the United States who actually cares more.
So here's where I start getting problems with Kamala, because she's not answering the question, right? And this is where she's obviously stalling a little bit here. And nothing she's saying is incorrect. But again, she's not really answering the question. She's stalling a little bit. And this whole catch and release thing, the Democrats have to come up with some sort of answer to this, because whatever she's doing here is not an answer. And that's why he keeps coming back to it, because she's really not answering it. I believe, I'm not sure, but I believe the end of, I mean, catch and release is a weird way to put it, because I believe that's like a right-wing talking point. But I believe under COVID, Donald Trump was able to put some sort of executive order in that, the Remain in Mexico policy, or whatever it's called. And I believe that was because of COVID. And I believe the Biden-Harris administration ended that policy because the COVID restrictions were lowering. So why don't they just say that? This idea of this was a temporary policy. It was not going to last forever. This was not some sort of ingrained law in our system. Let me double check on that. Remain in Mexico policy. Title 42, pretty sure it expired, that didn't end it. Right, but why doesn't she say that? That's my issue. It does say here it was initially ended by the Biden administration after some legal battles. And like there had to be a reason why the Biden administration ended it, right? So why don't the Democrats answer these questions? Was it ended because XYZ? Because she's giving the right-wing fodder here to say she's not answering the question. And she's not answering the question. Again, nothing she's saying is incorrect, but she's not answering the question. So the Remain in Mexico policy was administered by the Department of Homeland Security. It required migrants seeking asylum to remain in Mexico until the U.S. immigration court date. Okay. The policy was ended by the Biden administration after some legal battles. The Supreme Court of the United States ruled on June 30th, 2022 in Biden versus Texas that the administration had the authority to end the policy. However, a federal judge blocked the Biden administration from ending the program. Remain in Mexico has been widely criticized by human rights organizations for exposing migrants to attacks while they are awaiting processing. So, like, okay, Why don't they take this line from human rights groups who say that there are human rights violations happening with this Remain in Mexico policy? Why don't they say that? Again, why doesn't she say that in this interview? I feel like that's a very easy answer to make, a very clear and coherent argument to make. There are human rights violations and human rights concerns that we have with the Remain in Mexico policy. Why don't they say that? Why didn't she say that? That's my question in this point. I'm curious to see if there are any more reasons the Biden administration gave for ending this policy. In February 2021, the administration of Joe Biden ended the Remain in Mexico policy, resuming admission of new asylum seekers in the approximate 25,000 with pending cases to the United States, and asked the Supreme Court to dismiss the appeal. This is about all the court back and forth. Why not say something to the degree of, this is our law, actually. Asylum laws exist in the United States, right? Instead of saying, this is Trump's issue, Trump won't make it. There's a direct answer to this question, right? Patrick Murray says, to be honest, I think Trump ended it simply because Trump did it and wants to undo everything Trump did. Maybe that's so. Obviously, I don't know how you could confirm that. Sonia says, done with Allan and now done with you. What did I say? What did I do? Achieve Unlock says, maybe human rights violations are not seen as a big deal to American voters. Maybe so, but it still answers the question. She can take 2 seconds to answer that. Right? I think this is really about the zero tolerance policies related to family separation. Okay, again, why doesn't she say that? Sadly, global human rights violations aren't seen as a concern to American voters. I hear that. But she could still say it and still get people off her back for saying she didn't answer the questions, right? Let's see. Why is Remain in Mexico policy harmful? Making vulnerable people wait to access asylum protections and due processes in Mexico is concerning for a number of reasons. First, the policy leaves many vulnerable asylum seekers to wait in dangerous, unsafe circumstances. Second, making asylum seekers wait in Mexico to access protection is deeply concerning due to due process and access to justice perspective. I don't really know. I mean, I get due process and access to justice. This policy impacts those people who have shown that they have a credible fear of persecution. Nonetheless, the policy would make them wait in Mexico without access to family, legal, or social support. Why not just say that? Right? Why not just say that? Now, I also wonder about this idea of, this idea that I guess that when they ended the Remain in Mexico, there's this idea from Fox News that people are just unleashed. These immigrants are just unleashed into the country. I don't know how true or how false that is. God damn, my mouse is not working. Chad says, I think there are two approaches. Biden/Harris wanted to pass legislation, law, instead of doing things by executive order, but they couldn't pass the first law and the second law took time. Yeah, so why not say that? We're not interested in these temporary why not just attack the idea of the temporariness of an executive order, right? I mean, here's what Mayorkas said. The policy had endemic flaws, imposes unjustifiable human costs, and pulls resources and personnel away from other priorities to secure the border. Why not just say, literally that's all you have to say right here. And nobody can say she didn't answer the question. You know, that's all she has to say. Sorry, my dog is whining. All right, I want to check on this claim that ending remain in Mexico policy caused immigrants, what would be the right word that Fox News used, to flood into the country? I don't know. That's the issue. How do you... It's a hard thing to confirm. You know, it's something that Fox News says a lot. Like, ending the remain... I mean, Baier says this multiple times. He says the ending of these policies caused illegal immigrants to, quote, you know, flood into our country and cause all these crimes, right? Kiko. Are immigrants allowed? I mean, they're allowed into the U.S., I know, but maybe this will be a better search into the U.S. to while they await court dates. I mean, obviously there's an issue with our immigration system, right? Because nobody should be waiting 10 years to get a court date, right? But why didn't she say that? You know, she says the issue is not that ending Trump's policy. The issue is our system. I mean, she did kind of say that, but she didn't say specifically like, you know, we needed to have the wait times lowered, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, 11, you know, and stuff like this. 11 years of government data reveals that immigrants do show up for court, you know, and that, you know, these 3 cases, while tragic, are the vast minority of cases, right? Let's see how asylum works in the U.S. and why. Tashid says the issue is you have to strike the right balance between zero tolerance policy, which was inhumane, and the death of American citizens, which is also terrible. I agree. I totally agree. Totally agree with that. God, I don't know why my trackpad isn't working. Where is it? I don't even know where my mouse is right now. Come on. Oh, there it is. So someone's thing in Mexico, someone who came across as an illegal immigrant without a visa, they're not here legally, this guy's saying. Who is this guy? Muzaffar Christie with the Migrant Policy Institute, okay. So was the U.S. obligated to let her in when she showed up without a visa? Yes. Anyone on U.S. soil who expresses fear of returning to their country on the basis of 5 protected classifications UN protocol, we have the obligation to let them in to pursue asylum applications. So that's another thing she could have said. It's literally our law, right? So once you put in an asylum application, within 6 months of that, you get the right to work. All right. So that's a positive thing. It's like, even if they are here, they're working, right? You're saying there is a legal process that can be followed plausibly, even could work, but the number of people rising overwhelmed it. That's right. The only thing I could add is we have rules, regulations, resources, and stuff. Okay. Again, I mean, I don't want to go too much into this, but the issue I have is, you know, Bret is framing this as these illegals are you just let them into our country. And look, they murdered people. And it's like, yes, that's terrible. But Kamala doesn't answer the question. And as I've just shown, there are some very clear answers to that question. Right?
More about fixing a problem, even if it is not to their political advantage in an election, because there was a solution, Bret.
Madam Vice President, it was a policy decision in the early part of your administration. I will let one of the mothers talk about it. Take a listen.
Because of the Biden-Harris administration open border policies catch and release, they were enrolled in the Alternatives to Detention program. This meant that they were released into the United States. It was not even a full 3 weeks later that they would take my daughter, Jocelyn Nungare's life. I believe the Biden-Harris administration open border policies are responsible for the death of my daughter.
That's the early days.
I mean, yeah, what can you say to a grieving mother? There's not much you can say. Look, she blames the Biden-Harris administration. I don't know. What do you say to that?
So do you owe them an apology is what I'm saying.
I will tell you that I am so sorry for her loss. I am so sorry for her loss. Sincerely. But let's talk about what is happening right now with an individual who does not want to participate in solutions. Let's talk about that as well.
But do you want to answer
in all fairness, I told you, I feel...
I mean, look, this is a tactic done by journalists on any network. And, you know, they ask them about these individual cases and they say, should you apologize to this individual person? It's kind of an impossible question to answer from a politician's perspective, right? I think she's doing as best she can. Obviously, since she's not answering the question, it's kind of a gotcha question, right? How do you even answer that question? If it was me, I would say, yes, I apologize to her. I don't know, but then you're admitting that your policies killed their daughter. It was one man who killed their daughter, right? He's the man. I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. But yeah, it's a hard question to even get your mind around of, right? I want to look up catch and release for a second. This is what comes up when you write a catch and release, because it's not catch and release. That's also a bad way to phrase it. Right. The idea is, while these asylum seekers wait for their court date, yes, they are allowed to stay in the United States, right? It's not this idea of you catch these illegals and then you just like go out, see you later. It's like, these are people who are coming to the border seeking asylum. Now, maybe people abuse the asylum laws. That may be true. But again, the whole framing of this idea of catch and release is wrong. This is from, I think, the right-wingers in Congress. So I don't know if that's really a good thing. Let's see. This is from, obviously, an immigration policy. So they also have their own agenda. But let's just see what they say. What is meant by the term catch and release? Catch and release is a term used to describe the process through which certain immigrants are apprehended and released from Homeland Security custody pending their immigration court proceedings. This is an incorrect term, exactly what I just said, that we suggest you do not use, as it incorrectly implies that individuals apprehended along the U.S. border are released from DHS custody without consideration, monitoring, or consequences. Right. So again, the whole framing from Bret, calling it catch and release, is incorrect. Why is it preferable to release certain individuals rather than detain in DHS custody? Detaining individuals who present no safety or flight risk has both human and economic costs. All right, I get what they're saying there. It says that individuals who are released from custody are are monitored. Yes, DHS has a spectrum of humane, proven, and cost-effective alternatives to detention that can utilize to monitor released individuals and families. In many instances, people released from DHS custody at the U.S.-Mexico border are put on GPS monitoring, such as ankle monitors, which tracks their movement electronically. These individuals are also required to report into Immigration, Customs, ICE. Other monitors include, all right, so that's another thing she can say, is that these people are not just wildly, like, why aren't Democrats using this stuff? It's right here. Why aren't they using it? Fox News is a propaganda network. What do you expect? I totally agree with you, Rick. I expect her to come with some of these talking points to combat their propaganda. That's what I expect. Why doesn't she say catch and release is an incorrect term? That's not even what's happening. Why doesn't she just say that as soon as he poses the question to her? Why doesn't she just say that?
Awful for what she and her family have experienced.
During that time, you said repeatedly that the border was secure. When in your mind did it start becoming a crisis?
I think we've had a broken immigration system transcending, by the way, Donald Trump's administration even before. Let's all be honest about that. I have no pride in saying that this is a perfect immigration system. I've been clear, I think we all are, that it needs to be fixed. We need more. I was just down at the border talking with border agents, and they will tell you, and I'm sure you probably, I know you investigate and you are a serious journalist.
James says illegal alien, catch and release. These are inhumane terms because they are seen as animals. Right. I don't hear anybody on the Democratic side of things, even on the left, saying, and I watch lots of interviews, I watch lots of content with very prominent Democratic leaders and voices and analysts. None of them combat this kind of stuff. They just sit there and blink and blame Donald Trump. There is plenty of information out there to directly answer and talk back to these questions. They need to start doing that, in my opinion.
They will tell you, we need more judges. We need to process those cases faster. We need the support for those cases that should be prosecuted. They need more resources, and Congress ultimately is the only place that's going to get fixed, Bret. Well, that's how this system works.
That's the premise of this question. There were 90-plus executive orders that were rescinded in the first days. Many of those were Trump border policies. I'm not going to stay here because there's other things to talk about, but you frequently...
Executive orders aren't policy. He keeps calling them Trump policy. Am I wrong about that? Executive orders are not policy. Executive orders, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe they are policy technically. But I believe a lot of these I don't know, maybe they are policies. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Executive orders are bandages, right? They're not laws, right? They are policy technically. All right. I'm just going to skip that train. Apologize for going down that track.
We talked to the Border Patrol Union for support of that bipartisan bill, and they did. They supported it. But they also just endorsed Donald Trump and said, you've been, quote, a failure with border security. Why do you think they said that?
Who said that?
That you've been, and they did. They talked to the Border Patrol Union for support of that bipartisan bill, and they did. They supported it. But they also just endorsed Donald Trump and said, you've been, quote, a failure with border security. Why do you think they said that?
I think they're frustrated. And
Border security supports Donald Trump because he is bullish on the topic. So obviously, when you work in a very specific, very polarized job like a Border Patrol agent, obviously you're going to back the man who is bullish on your topic, right? Executive orders are not legislative. Yeah, that's probably a better way to put it. Border Patrol, Trump, endorsement. Let's see. What the heck is this website? Get the heck away. Dismissed for 30 days. I've never seen that before. Oh, this is a Trump campaign press release. Where do I see the actual endorsement straight from the Border Patrol? I don't want to see it from Fox News. Here, the Hills a little bit. Border Patrol Council endorses Trump in Arizona rally. Border Patrol Council. Border Patrol Union endorses Trump. All right. Here's the council. Oh God, get me off of his website. Use Snopes like your mom recommended it, but there's no Snopes coming up. Let's see. This is from New York Times. Okay. Hitting me with an ad. Dude, what is up with my trackpad today? Oh my God.
Receive, and this was an honor that I didn't know about till very recently, the endorsement, because it's very hard for them to do this, you know? It's very hard for them to do this. But the endorsement of the official union of the Border Patrol agents, the entire union is endorsing them. It's a great honor. So let's show our appreciation for their unbelievable service to our country.
All right. Perez said if we allow Border Star Harris to win this election, every city, every community in this great country will be going to hell. The untold millions of people, unvetted, was allowed into this country that are committing murders, rapes, robberies, burglaries, and every other crime will continue to put our country in peril. Only one man can fit. All right. It seems pretty clearly they were critical of her. All right. I don't know why I'm spending so much time on this.
I get it. They want support. They want support, and that's what that border security bill would have done. These guys down at the border, these men and women, they're working hard.
I mean, this is also sort of an impossible question to answer. It's like, these people don't support you. Why? It's like, how do you answer that?
They're working around the clock. I get it.
There's a lot of people that look back at what you said in 2019 when you first ran for president. And there have been changes, and you've talked about some of them. When it comes to immigration, you supported allowing immigrants in the country illegally to apply for driver's license, to qualify for free tuition at universities, to be enrolled in free health care. Do you still support those things?
Listen, that was 5 years ago, and I'm very clear that I will follow the law. I have made that statement over and over again, and as Vice President of the United States, that's exactly what I've done, not to mention before.
If that's the case, you chose a running mate, Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota, who signed those very things into state law.
Again, there has to be a reason why these are becoming a law. There has to be a reason. Why doesn't she know why these, or even if he said she said it in the past, how does she not have anything to combat that?
So do you support that?
We are very clear, and I am very clear, as is Tim Walz, that we must support and enforce federal law, and that is exactly.
I mean, this is not an answer.
What we will do.
So decriminalizing border crossings, like you said in 2019.
I do not believe in decriminalizing border crossings, and I've not done that as vice president. I will not do that as president.
So these are evolutions that you've had.
But let's be very clear. I'm the only person who's running for president who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations, from the Sinaloa cartel to the Guadalajara cartel to people who have trafficked in guns, drugs, and human beings. I have spent a significant part of my career going after people.
I don't like this line she keeps using it. When she uses it over and over again, and it's not relevant to 2024.
Who present a threat to the safety of the American people and cross our border with the intent of doing us harm and cross our border illegally, and I will do that work as vice president. I take that work quite seriously.
This is a time when voters, especially here in Pennsylvania, are inundated with commercials and ads. They just want it to stop because it's every...
I really do. Let me go to Snopes. You know, he said earlier that Tim Walz and her, she supported it, and he actually enacted into law that immigrants get free tuition. Do illegal immigrants get free tuition in Minnesota? Oops. All right, nothing. How about just, did I misspell Minnesota? No, it's just capitalized. Do illegal immigrants get free tuition? Immigrants could a bill for tuition. Okay, this is about veterans. All right. Did Democrats pass a bill that funds college for illegal immigrants using taxpayer? This is old. It says mixture. The Democrat-controlled New York legislature passed a law allowing undocumented high school students to obtain financial assistance for state universities and community colleges. All right. This law applies to New York State only, not in the whole U.S. Again, there has to be a reason for this. She needs to present those reasons.
Commercial, but many of them add noise, but a few of them seem to break through. This particular one from the Trump campaign has gotten a lot of attention.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
So are you still in
That ad is so ridiculous.
support of using taxpayer dollars to help prison inmates or detained illegal aliens to transition to another gender?
I will follow the law, and it's a law that Donald Trump...
I don't like her whole line of, I will follow the law.
actually followed. You're probably familiar with, now it's a...
All right, I need to Snopes this too. Do inmates get gender surgery from tax dollars? God. All right, this is something different. Let me just try to Google it. All right. God damn it. Does Kamala Harris support government-paid gender affirming surgery for prisoner inmates and immigrants? Answer. The government must provide medical care to prisoners and immigrant detainees. Vice President Harris supports in a 2019 questionnaire medically necessary gender affirming care, including surgical care for prisoners and detainees. So why doesn't she, well, again, medically necessary? That's a very important part of that, right? She has not detailed her position in the current campaign. God damn, my freaking trackpad is so messed up. Cynthia says, if a doctor recommends gender affirming care for the health and well-being of the inmate, it must be provided. There you go. Why doesn't she just say that? Why doesn't she just say that? Why doesn't anybody say that? I never heard anybody say it that clearly, and it's so clear.
A public report that under Donald Trump's administration, these surgeries were available on a medical necessity basis to people in the...
Okay, she did say it. All right, but she could have said it better.
The federal prison system, and I think, frankly, that ad from the Trump campaign is a little bit of like throwing, stones when you're living in a glass house.
The Trump aides say that he never advocated for that prison policy and no gender transition
well,
surgeries
you know what? You got to
happened
take
during
responsible for what
his
happened in your
presidency.
administration.
Yeah, no. surgeries happened in his presidency.
in
Okay, so Bret keeps saying no surgery, gender-affirming cares on inmates happened during his presidency. All right, did they happen under Biden's presidency? Did they happen under Obama's presidency? Is it just that zero happened because they're super rare? You know, like, again, kind of misleading.
black and white.
Would you still advocate for using taxpayer dollars for gender reassignment
I will
surgeries?
follow the law, just as I
you have a
think
say
Donald
in
Trump would
this.
say he did.
You would have a say as president.
Like I said, I think it's real. He spent 20.
This is such a nothing issue. Oh my God. He's spending so much time on this with the vice president, maybe future president of the United States. I mean, we're 12 minutes in. He's talked about two topics, immigration and transgender care. That's it. That alone tells you a lot.
$20 million on those ads, trying to create a sense of fear in the voters because he actually has no plan in this election that is about focusing on the needs of the American people. Whereas, at $20 million on that ad, on an issue that, as it relates to the biggest issues that
All right, she's about to say what I just said.
affect the American people, it's really quite remote.
Yeah,
and again,
seriously.
his policy was no different.
I mean, she said it pretty perfectly there. It's really quite remote, Bret. And you're spending all this time asking me about it.
Look at where we are, though.
They say
on
it was
plans for
different,
the
but let's-
American
we'll move
people,
on.
I'm offering a plan to deal with affordable
Oh, Bret, you're so fair. They say it was different.
housing.
Bret, how many gender affirming cares were there under Obama, under Biden? How many have there been, period, in jail?
offering a plan to deal with
Medically necessary ones.
what we need to do to strengthen small businesses, which are the backbone of America's economy. I am offering a plan that is about
Why don't we just let people do what they want with their bodies, too? I mean, I understand it's taxpayer dollars. And I'm going to skip that line.
taking care of young parents and giving them the support they need. My plans for the economy will strengthen the economy, as have been reviewed by 16 Nobel laureates, Goldman Sachs.
I have to say, watching this a second time, I think when I first watched this, I thought she really didn't do a good job. Watching this a second time, I believe I was wrong. She's doing better than I thought. I still don't think she's doing good, but she's doing a lot better than I thought.
Moody's and recently the Wall Street Journal, which have all studied our plans and have indicated my plans for our economy would strengthen our economy, his would make them weaker,
Why do you
would
think more
ignite
people
inflation and invite a recession by the middle of next year. Those are the facts.
Why do you think more people say they trust him on the economy than they trust you?
I think that when you look at an analysis of our plans for what we would do as president of the
Another
United
question you
States.
can't answer. Why do more people trust Trump? I don't fucking know, dude.
It has
That's what she should say. I don't fucking know, dude.
been clear to those who study and understand how economic policy works that moving forward, because I do believe the American people are ready to turn the page on the divisiveness and the type of rhetoric that has come out of Donald Trump. People are ready to chart a new way forward, and they want a president who has a plan for the future and a plan that is sound and will strengthen our country. My plan for the economy does exactly that. His plan would be, again, to give tax cuts to billionaires and the biggest corporations in our country and blow up our deficit.
It's interesting you said turn the page, Madam Vice President. You were asked on two different shows last week what, if anything, you would do differently than President Biden. Here's what you said.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
Under a Harris administration, what would the major changes be, and what would stay the same?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not Joe Biden.
I noticed.
And so that would be one change in terms of, but also I think it's important to say with, 28 days to go, I'm not Donald Trump.
So you're not Joe Biden, you're not Donald Trump, but nothing comes to mind that you would do differently?
Let me be very clear. My presidency will not be a continuation of Joe Biden's presidency. And like every new president that comes into office, I will bring my life experiences, my professional experiences, and fresh and new ideas. I represent a new generation of leadership. I, for example, am someone who has not spent the majority of my career in Washington, D.C. I invite ideas, whether it be from the Republicans who are supporting me, who were just on stage with me minutes ago, and the business sector, and others who can contribute to the decisions that I make about, for example, my plan for increasing the supply of housing in America and bringing down the cost of housing, addressing the issue of small businesses, which is about working with the private sector to bring more capital and access to capital to our small business leaders, including my plan for a $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers and for small businesses, extending the tax deduction from $5,000 to $50,000.
We've heard a lot about those plans in recent days. Your campaign slogan is a new way forward, and it's time to turn the page. You've been vice president for 3.5 years, so what are you turning the page from?
Well, first of all, turning the page from the last decade in which we've been burdened with the kind of rhetoric coming from Donald Trump that has been designed and implemented to divide our country and have Americans literally point fingers at each other. Rhetoric and an approach to leadership that suggests that the strength of a leader is based on who you beat down instead of what we all know. The strength of leadership is based on who you lift up. The strength of an American president, which is one who
This is where just end the answer. She answered it very well, but then she just keeps going. There's no reason for this.
Understands that the vast majority of us have more in common than what separates us.
Madam Vice President, more than 70% of people
that is about turning the page on rhetoric that people are frankly exhausted of, Bret.
More than 70% of people tell the country is on the wrong track. They say the country is on the wrong track.
I mean, this is one poll from Marquette Law School.
If it's on the wrong track, that track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president. That is what they're saying.
JT's a fake ass poll. Yeah, I don't know what poll that is. I mean, Fox News likes to pull these polls from out of their asses.
79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
Look, she needs a better answer to this. She needs a better answer to this 100%. Whether the poll is legitimate or not, she needs a better answer to this. And the real answer is that probably most people think we're on the wrong track or are dissatisfied with our government, et cetera, however you want to phrase it, because of decades and decades of mistakes that our government has made, right? She can't say that, obviously, because she is part of that government. That's the real answer. But she needs a better answer than this.
Madam
You
Vice
and I
President,
both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. What are you talking about?
I don't know what she was. When I first saw this too, I had the same reaction. It's like, I don't know what you're talking about, actually.
What I'm talking about is that over the last decade, people have become. But listen.
I mean, this is Bret just being annoying. But you're in power. Yeah, but so was Donald Trump, mother effer.
Over the last decade, it is clear to me, and certainly the Republicans who are on stage with me,
the answer to this needs to be, we pass this, 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 and this. The American people might not be seeing it instantly. It's a long course of action that over time will help improve people's lives. That's the answer, right?
The former chief of staff to the president, Donald Trump.
This whole dude, that's the answer right there. Yes, I am in power. And while I was in power, we passed the CHIPS Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, the bipartisan infrastructure bill. These policies are not flashy. They will take time to be implemented. As the American people see the benefits of those, American people, however you phrase this question, won't be so pessimistic, whatever it is.
Former defense.
Lumi Atkinson's polls have been showing Americans think the country has been on the wrong path since the 90s. That poll question is garbage. You said it better than I could, Lumi. Thank you. But her answer here is bad.
Secretaries, National Security Advisor, and
it's too long-winded. It's too full of platitudes and cliches.
Vice President, one, that he is unfit to serve, that he is unstable, that he is dangerous, and that people are exhausted.
And here people are just going to say she's deflecting on Trump, which she is, you know.
with someone who professes to be a leader
but she
who
is
spends
deflecting.
full time demeaning and engaging in personal grievances and it being about him instead of the American people. People are tired of that.
If that's the case, why is half the country supporting him? Why is he beating you? And
That's not true. Half the country does not support Kamala Harris. I mean, Donald Trump. That's just not true. Half the country. He's assuming that half the country, that 100% of the country votes, right? Which is not true. And then, well, if that were to be true, I guess you could say 50% of the country supports him. Everybody on planet Earth knows that 100% of the American public does not vote.
A lot of swing states. Why, if he's half the country supporting him, why is he beating you in a lot of swing states? Why?
He's not beating her in a lot of swing states. The election hasn't happened yet. You can't beat somebody prior. You can't say before a game based off of, 70% of people think the Bills are going to beat the Bengals. Oh, the Bills are beating the Bengals. That'd be the same thing. There's been no election yet, Bret. He's not beating her in anything yet.
If he's as bad as you say, that half of this country is now supporting this person who could be the 47th president of the United States, why is that happening?
This is an election for president of the United States. It's not supposed to be easy.
I know, but
it's not supposed to be.
That's a weird answer.
Supposed to be a
cakewalk. So are they misguided, the 50%? Are they stupid? What is it?
I would never say that about the American.
Bret, are you saying the American people are stupid, Madam Vice President? Like, what a fucking dumb way to phrase your question, dude.
I did the 50%? Are they stupid? What is it?
I would never say that about the American people. And in fact, if you listen to Donald Trump, if you watch any of his rallies, he's the one who tends to demean and belittle and diminish the American people. He's the one who talks about an enemy within, an enemy within, talking about the American people. So,
I don't know, this just feels, this whole enemy within thing she does just feels so forced.
Suggesting he would.
Again, she's not wrong. It's just the way she's delivering and answering to a lot of these questions that I don't think are good.
Turn the American military on the American people.
We asked that question to the former president today. Harris Faulkner had a town hall, and this is how he responded.
I heard about that. They were saying I was like threatening. I'm not threatening anybody. They're the ones doing the threatening.
Oh, thank you, Fox News. There's his response. They said I'm threatening. I'm not threatening anybody. Fox News is like, oh, okay. He said he's not threatening anybody. Case closed.
They do phony investigations. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the greatest gangster. No, it's true. No, but think of it. It's called weaponization of government. It's a terrible thing.
So,
Bret, I'm sorry, and with all due respect, that clip was not what he has been saying about the enemy within that he has repeated.
Right, but he didn't say he was going to show you that clip of him saying it. He said he was going to show you his response. Again, weird answer from her. I don't know why Democrats, to this whole idea of Trump saying that Democrats are weaponizing the government against them, why don't they just say there is no actual evidence of that? There is no actual evidence of Biden or any Democrat influencing any sort of judge or court or anything to that nature that has anything against Trump, any lawsuits or anything, charges against Trump. Why don't they quote him when he literally says he's going to weaponize the government against his enemies? That should be her answer right now, not whatever. You didn't show me. Like, what? Did she not hear him? I don't understand.
When he's speaking about the American people, that's not what you just showed.
He was asked about that specific...
No, that's not what you just showed. In all fairness and respect to you,
that was the question that we asked him.
You didn't show that, and here's the bottom line. He has repeated it many times, and you and I both know that. And you and I both know that he...
She should say, he repeated it many times, and that excuse you just played is totally bogus.
He has talked about turning the American military on the American people. He has talked about going after people who are engaged in peaceful protest. He has talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy. And in a democracy, the President of the United States, in the United States of America, should be willing to be able to handle criticism without saying he'd lock people up for doing it. And this is what is at
This is a strong point for her, for sure.
stake, which is why you have someone like the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying what Mark Milley has said about Donald Trump being a
Bret's like, all right, I gotta get ready to interrupt her. All right, let me get ready to interrupt her.
threat to the United States of America.
He's quoted in the Bob Woodward book that way, yes. Let me ask you this,
No,
Madam Vice President.
but
You call
let's not
Donald
diminish
Trump.
the significance
you
of that.
call Donald Trump.
I agree with her.
He's misguided. You say now
He's
he
unstable.
is unstable.
He is unstable, Bret.
He's not well. You say he's mentally not stable.
He's not stable.
Let me ask you this.
and-
You
and
told
we
many
should all be
interviewers
concerned.
that Joe Biden was on his game.
I don't like this whole attacking Trump as unstable. I mean, he's the same motherfucker he's always been.
That ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Joe Biden, I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room, and he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions on behalf of the American people.
There were no concerns raised?
Bret, Joe Biden.
When she says Joe Biden here, it just makes me think of Maya Rudolph doing her. Joe Biden?
Biden is not on the ballot.
I understand.
And
but,
Donald Trump
But
is.
you talked about it.
And Donald Trump
After
is.
George Clooney said within a few minutes of talking to President Biden at a fundraiser that he thought this was not the
I'm so sick of this Biden cognitive stuff.
same Joe Biden that we saw on the.
All right, this man has been talking to the vice president, maybe potential president, for 20 minutes. He's talked about Joe Biden's cognitive health, immigration, trans folks. What else did he talk about? He did talk about the economy. All right, that's the one. I mean, immigration is valid. He didn't frame it validly. 3 out of 4 of the stuff that he's talking about or spending time on is just ridiculous.
Donald Trump is on the ballot.
I understand. You met with him at least once a week for 3.5 years. You didn't have any concerns?
The answer is no, Kamala. Just say no.
I think the American people have a concern about Donald Trump, which is why the people who know him best, including leaders of our national security
the answer to that was no,
have all spoken out. Even people who worked for him in the Oval Office, worked with him in the Situation Room, and have said he is unfit and dangerous and should never be president of the United States again, including his former vice president, which is why the job was open for him to choose another running mate. So that is a fact. That is a fact.
Madam Vice President, 2 more things. You were asked on 60 Minutes about the biggest threat that the world faces, that the U.S. faces. This is what you said.
Which foreign country do you consider to be our greatest adversary?
I think
I really don't like this question. I don't like this question from any media outlet. Who's our biggest threat? I hate this question. It just feels like the media, our government, all they're out to do is stir up conflict. Who's our biggest threat? You know what I answer to that? Hopefully nobody.
An obvious one in mind, which is Iran. Iran has American blood on their hands.
I don't know, I just find this question so stupid.
Okay? This attack on Israel, 200 ballistic missiles.
There were threats. There are threats from China. There are also alliances. It's such a black and white question and answer. It's so meaningless and pointless.
What we need to do to ensure that Iran never achieves the ability to be a nuclear power, that is one of my highest priorities.
A number of experts thought you would say China. The FBI director had said that. But you.
What is this question, bro? It's like, oh, maybe you should have said China. Again, it just points again how stupid this question is. Yeah, sensationalism. It's like, oh, well, Bret's like, oh, maybe you should have said China. Is Iran the wrong answer?
You said Iran. If that's the case, what do you say to critics who look at the actions of your administration and say you're not acting like Iran is the #1 threat?
Well, I will tell you most recently, whether it was in April or in October, and then several hours on each
Kamala, get to the point.
occasion that Iran posed a threat to Israel. I was there, most recently in the Situation Room, in the most recent attack, working with the heads of our military in doing what America must always do to defend and to support Israel in its requirement to defend itself, and to give American support to be able to allow Israel to have the resources to defend itself against attack, including from Iran and Iran's terrorist proxies in the region.
Right.
And that
but those
is,
proxies were getting funded by
my
Iran.
commitment to that is unyielding and unwavering.
Critics just say that you either relaxed or failed to enforce sanctions on Iran, allowing all of this money to flow into Iran, like billions.
Let's
in
go back
oil
to Donald
profits.
Trump, who pulled out of a deal that would have actually put Iran in check.
The estimates
and then
in billions.
It was during Donald Trump's
that
administration
go towards
that
the Iran.
Why aren't you, dude? We get your question, dude. Like, she's answering. We get what you're trying to say. Look how much money Iran made. Look at all the oil they're selling. Bro, Donald Trump ended the Iran deal, which is what she's trying to explain to you. God damn it.
Warn when it counts.
Oh my God, this graphic is so funny. But look at all
where
the barrels of oil
we
they
had
sold.
an American administration, Iran in check.
The estimates
and then
in billions.
It was during Donald Trump's
that
administration
go towards
that
the Iran regime.
That we had an American military base that was attacked, where American soldiers,
You know what would fix this? Getting off of fossil fuels.
Suffered traumatic brain injuries, and Donald Trump dismissed them as headaches. Not to mention how Donald Trump has
all of this money
has treated and
has
talked about
gone in the
America's
past few
military
years.
and military service people,
Critics
calling
say
them
that it goes to
suckers and
Hezbollah,
losers.
Hamas.
Dude, she's trying to say that part of the reason why there's instability in Iran is because Donald Trump threw out the Iran deal. That's what she's trying to say.
Has diminished
and
the
Houthis.
significance.
We're talking over each other. I apologize.
I've made the decision to talk over you, and now I'm apologizing for it.
I would like that we would have a conversation that is grounded in full assessment of the facts, which includes, I think this interview is supposed to be about the choices that your viewers should be presented about this election, and the contrast is important.
Yes, ma'am.
And on the subject of Iran, I am offering what should be an important contrast that is presented for folks to make a decision
and there are critics
that they feel.
who look at what the administration did and say and think differently. Madam Vice President, they're wrapping me very hard here. I hope you got to say what you wanted to say about Donald Trump. There are a lot of things
There's more to say. I have much more to say,
There are a lot of things that people want to learn about you and your policies, and that's why we invited you
I invite everyone to go.
I don't disagree with him. Like, she should be talking, obviously she should be talking about Donald Trump, but she should be talking more about herself too. And not that she was the Attorney General of California.
Go to KamalaHarris.com, and you will see that I have 80 pages of policies that are quite comprehensive and should be
and a good point to make.
Accessible to anyone who would like to read them. And it includes what I intend to do about affordable housing, what I intend to do about small businesses, what I do
and that's why we invited you here
our economy.
to see.
Yeah, but bro, that's why I invited you here. You didn't ask her any of those questions about her policy. But again, she could have inserted more of that too.
Where you were in 2019 and where you are now.
America's military and ensure we have the most lethal and best fighting force in the world.
Madam Vice President,
and
they're giving me a hard rap
Well,
here.
I thank you for the time.
I thank you for the time.
It's good to meet you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity.
Shut up, Sean Hannity. All right, well, let's be frank here. That interview, no Trump supporter is watching that and going, Harris did pretty good. And no Democrat or left-wingers watching that and going, Bret Baier did a fair interview. I mean, it was kind of a pointless interview at the end of the day. I don't think she made any really great or fantastic points. I don't think he got her on anything really. Yeah, Fig says that was a nightmare. Yeah, I agree. It was a bit of a nightmare. And I think that's why both the right and the left are really digging in hard to their sides on this, saying, Bret Baier did amazing, Kamala did amazing. Because in all honesty, they both did pretty bad, and it was pretty much a headache, as Aiden said. So that's my full analysis of it. Pylarana says, it was like running the gauntlet. She survived the slaps. I don't want to say the other word. Yeah. Disco says, no one really voted her in. She was placed there. Well, Disco, there's good news. There's an election in November, and we'll see if she's voted in or not. Right now, she's not president, so no one placed her as president. We'll see. He was only trying to give her gotcha questions. I don't think that's necessarily true. I don't think he was only giving her gotcha questions. I think some of his questions were framed really badly. Like, really badly. That's for sure. You want to watch the Trump Univision interview? What's the point of watching Trump these days? He just says so much nonsense. It's just like, there's nothing, you can barely even combat it as you're sitting here talking about it. And it's just like mindless drool for the most part. Trump couldn't survive an interview with MSNBC. I mean, that's certainly true. I mean, if Rachel Maddow interviewed him, she would bury him. No questions asked, for sure. No, he would never do that, of course. But I don't know. I don't know if I don't know. I was going to say, I don't know if Bret Baier is comparable to Rachel Maddow, but maybe they are. I don't know. We can watch the town hall where he dances for 40 minutes. That would be amazing, right? Actually, I think I'm going to sign off. I'm pretty hungry. We're going for 2 hours now. But hopefully, I don't know. What did you guys think of the analysis? Was it helpful? Did you... Let me do a poll. Oops. Poll. Did you enjoy the analysis? I didn't really like how she'd always bring up Trump. Right. Again, you can bring up Trump, you can criticize Trump, but when every question you bring him up, it just gets exhausting and gives, again, people who are against you a lot of fodder against you. Oh, I think, yeah, Brennan, I think Kamala's going to win too. Don't get me wrong. I definitely think she's going to win. I just don't think that interview was helpful in that. Not that it really matters anyways, but... All right, seems like I got 51 votes and it seems like most people enjoyed it, so that's good to see. All right, I'm going to go eat. I'm going to go, the Dodgers still playing. I'm going to go watch the Dodgers. Have a good night, everyone.